presented by Exquisite Timepieces. More about them in the description down below and later in the video. New for the fall of 2021, the Omega Speedmaster Chronoscope is the latest in the Omega Speedmaster lineup of watches, which includes classic watches, such as the Speedmaster 57, the Moonwatch Professional, and the Caliber 321. The standard Speedmaster Moonwatch, which I recently featured on the channel, and I will link to that video in the description down below, differs from the new Chronoscope model in a number of ways, which we will get into. But suffice to say, the Chronoscope is a dual counter chronograph that pulls its inspiration from the Speedmaster chronograph watches from the 1940s. It features an elaborate dial with multiple chronograph timing scales and applied Arabic markers set atop a spiral track pattern. It also features a leaf-style handset, in keeping with the design styles of the era for which this watch is based on. At 43mm in diameter, it comes in a hair larger than the Moonwatch, but it's hardly a noticeable difference in hand. And in fact, on the wrist, and my wrist is 6 3/4 inches, I can't say that I really notice any difference between this and the Moonwatch model 1861 Hesselite Crystal Edition that I've owned and worn for a number of years. And speaking of fit on the wrist, while I'm probably getting ahead of myself here, I do have to mention this new welcomed feature. This is, to the best of my knowledge, the first Speedmaster bracelet to feature a toolless micro-adjustment system on the clasp, a feature that I myself and many watch fans have been asking for from Omega for years. Now, Omega calls it their comfort release adjustment system, and it's a push-pull 2-point adjustment, allowing the user to let in and out the bracelet by 5mm. And it's a great update to the clasp, and I'm happy to see it. But it's still not perfect. Like the Rolex EasyLink system, I find a single 5mm adjustment in general just not the right amount of adjustment for me. I don't often find my wrist needs that much leeway one way or the other. I'd much rather have a system that allows for 3 or maybe even 4 or 5 stops of adjustment in 2mm increments. However, this system is a great improvement, and as I said, it is a welcomed addition, and I hope it finds its way to all Speedmaster models sometime in the very near future. The rest of the bracelet is otherwise quite similar to the standard Speedmaster Moonwatch bracelet, although it does come in at 21mm wide at the lugs as opposed to 20mm, but that's also a small, barely noticeable difference on the wrist. Now, I should note that while this is the silver dial variation of the Chronoscope, it does come in 4 different dial configurations and additional strap and case material options. The dial versions include a Blvd dial with white metal markers, this silver dial with blue markers. Now, my favorite is this white panda dial with red accents, and of course there's the bronze gold cased version with a brown dial. This model on a metal bracelet comes in at $8,600 retail, which is $1,450 above the standard Speedmaster Moonwatch with sapphire crystal and display caseback. That's not an insignificant premium, but it might be worth the extra cost for someone looking for a Speedmaster with a dual register design and a few of those additional features found on this model. Speaking of the dual register design, this dial has an active running second sub-dial at the 9 o'clock position, and of course, the Caliber 9908 master chronometer offers stop seconds hacking for when you're setting the time. The 3 o'clock sub-dial is a two-handed 12-hour recorder capable of counting both the elapsed minutes and the hours on the same register. It's a feature with obvious benefits. It frees up more space on the dial for that intricate timing scale design, but it does have a negative. That negative is, if you're like me and you're on the wrong side of 40 years old, you probably have failing eyesight in that small detail range, and if so, it's a bit difficult to pick up the exact minute the counter is indicating. So to all my over 40 friends out there, break out those reading glasses when you're timing steaks on the grill. You might just need them. Now, a quick note about those aforementioned timing scales. Outboard of the dial and the sapphire crystal, we have a typical tachometric scale for timing speed over distance traveled. Interior to the spiral engraved hour track, you have 2 more scales. A telemeter capable of telling you exactly how far you are from a visible or an audible cue, such as lightning, for example. And finally, you have a pulsometer, which can measure your heart rate. Through the sapphire crystal display caseback, you're presented with the Omega Caliber 9908 coaxial master chronometer, a METAS certified movement that is, of course, hand winding and offers the wearer a 60-hour power reserve. It's a 44-joule column wheel chronograph running at 28,800 vibrations per hour, and I'd say that it's actually nicely decorated with Geneva stripes. The watch case is fairly standard for a Speedmaster, which includes the twisted lyre lug profile with a mix of brushed and polished surfaces, and features an Omega-signed crown with traditional piston-style pushers above and below for the operation of that chronograph function. Like most chronographs, the functionality of the timing mechanism is pretty much dead simple. The top pusher is responsible for starting and stopping the central 60 seconds counting hand, and you can reset the chronograph back to the 0 position with a click of the lower piston pusher. Having previously been a longtime owner of the Speedmaster, I'm a big fan of the line of watches as a whole. I owned the 1861 Moonwatch for years, and I have always liked that model and other models such as the first Omega in space, and I'd really love to get my hands on a 321 someday. That being said, this one falls in below those in terms of my favorite Speedmaster models, but I do really like the 1940s inspired design. The lovely and intricate details on the dial, like the applied markers and the spiral track pattern, and the additional functionality added with the extra timing scales. I'm also really happy to see that Omega finally is listening to the fans and to the customers who have been asking for some sort of toolless micro adjustment on the clasp. It's really been a long time coming, even if it's not my ideal system. And finally, while the price isn't as competitive as other models in the Speedmaster lineup, I'd say that the 15 to 20% premium over the standard Speedmaster isn't too outrageous considering what you're getting for the money. So yeah, overall an excellent new addition to the Speedy lineup, and one that I've enjoyed checking out for the past few days. Now, if you're interested in buying one of these, I think you should definitely give our video sponsor, Exquisite Timepieces, a shout, because I know they can take care of you. This video is presented in partnership with Exquisite Timepieces, located in Naples, Florida. Exquisite is an authorized dealer of dozens of watch brands, including Seiko and Grand Seiko, Omega, Oris, Blancpain, Breguet, and many more. Exquisite also has an amazing selection of pre-owned watches with new inventory coming in daily. So if you're looking for your next watch, check their website, exquisitetimepieces.com, or call their store at 239-227-2932, and let them know that you heard about them from Guy and the Just Bluefish channel. I can't recommend them enough.